And we're back. So, we'll be moving into the final game of the day against Pavel versus Unskiller. I also would like to talk about the way the open brackets work. So this is a great tournament format. Just even if you don't have the desire to be a pro Hearthstone player or whatever your interest in the game is, it's completely free and you get to match up against all the different pros. So you can practice your deck strategy, how you play in Conquest format. There's 8 open brackets, which then lead into the feature tournaments. Basically, as a player, you just know that if you sign up for the open and you can win a bunch of games, then you're going to get some stuff out of it. So, yeah, if you have any interest in Hearthstone, this is really what you want to be doing for the summer. And it's a lot of fun, too, because you get to see all the people that are famous trying against you.
Yeah, had quite a few high-profile people competing in these. Actually, Trump made a semifinal earlier. I believe you did as well, Hot Form, right?
Yeah, I got all the way to the semifinals of the feature, but I lost to Calento in a best of 7.
Yeah.
Can't be too beat up about that, but it would have been nice to win.
Yep. So, money up for grabs, some points. Maybe even you viewers at home could potentially qualify, get a ticket to PAX, and compete there. So, but for this grand final, the winner will directly qualify for the feature tournament and get their shot at their ticket to PAX. So, looking at these matchups for the final game, the only class they really share is that Patron Warrior that we've seen in every matchup so far.
Yep.
So we've got quite a difference. The Rogue and the Combo Druid from Unskiller versus the... Or wait, is this... Yeah, the Rogue and the Combo Druid for Unskiller, and the Warlock, which I believe was Handlock for Pavel, and the mid-range Hunter. Who do you really favor in this matchup?
So I would favor Pavel. I think that the Hand Warlock matches up well against every single deck that Unskiller's bringing, so that should almost be a guaranteed push through. Probably the Patron Warrior is good, and then mid-range Hunter will at least have a good matchup against the Druid. So in my opinion, I would expect Pavel to punish the Druid deck, but could go either way for sure.
Yeah, I think the real key in this matchup is probably going to be if Pavel's if Pavel's Hunter can get a win. Like you said, good matchup against Druid. Kind of average against the Rogue. He's running the kind of slower version of Hunter, so not too great against Rogue. And he's actually going to just lead out with Hunter. So this is definitely going to be one of the matchups to watch out for. Unskiller, we can't see at the moment, but he has led with his Rogue. We'll be getting his view to you guys in a moment. Pretty good start for Pavel.
Yeah, I like that he picked Hunter first as well. If he knows that that's his one who's going to have trouble taking a game, he gets the most chances to pick up something with this, and then he's confident in his other decks.
Yeah, if he can start off with a win on the deck that kind of needs to get a win this series, more so than the other decks, then he'll be in a really great state of mind, really great shape to take this match. But if the Rogue gets through for Unskiller, it's not too good for Pavel. Not the end of the world. I believe he'll get a freezing trap off of this Mad Scientist, considering the snake is in his hand.
And this is an absolutely ridiculous opening, too, with the curve working out perfectly into maybe a coin Lothab, but...
Yeah, that didn't quite hit the mark, says Pavel about that Leok. Yeah, I mean, the hand for Unskiller isn't too fantastic. He did draw both preps and a sprint, so no shortage of mana, really. Looks like he's going to prep out the Eviscerate, which would be... Okay, so playing very defensively. He even has that heal bot. And with the sap for Savannah, I mean, he probably feels really good about this, being at such a high health total.
I mean, do you like the prep there? It was just a Leok, after all.
Yeah, it was just a Leok. I mean, I think it worked out pretty well for him, because with this Lothab, he wouldn't really have a chance to prep this turn. The unfortunate thing about Lothabbing on turn 5 or going into the Rogue's turn 5 is that's generally the turn that they can play minions. And now Pavel is really going to take a very aggressive stance here. With the freezing trap up, he doesn't have to be afraid of the Azure Drake. I think the only card he's really going to be unhappy to see is that Healbot from Unskiller.
I think that prepping the Eviscerate was against Houndmaster because he knew that if there was a 4/6, there was no way.
Definitely.
But now that he did that, Lotheb is super hard to deal with. He has no way to kill it, and then if you sap Lotheb, that's going to be very punishing as a rogue.
Yeah. Don't think you can ever really sap that Lotheb. So Lotheb so far is going to get in 10 damage. And I wouldn't be surprised to just see a Haunted Creeper Houndmaster here. And with 2 kill commands in hand, lots of damage potential coming out from Pavel. In fact, if we don't see a Healbot, that could just be lethal next turn.
Do you actually like playing the Houndmaster this turn? To me, I think Steady Shot might be better.
I might just want that Steady Shot, yeah.
He gets a chance to save the Beast, too.
Yeah, he's just going to save the Beast and go for just the blank Houndmaster. Wants to save the Beast for that kill command, of course. And now, I think the biggest deal here is even with the Healbot, the Hunter has 10 damage in hand, and the Rogue's essentially at 14 if he heals. So he's got 2 or 3 turns to piece together 29 points of damage to kill the Hunter, which is ambitious. So he even has to sap that Lotheb, which not good, like we said. So it's gonna be tough to come back here. Looks like he's just gonna throw out a kill command, and this sets up 2-turn lethal. Actually,
yeah. I actually like sapping the Lotheb there. Although sapping Lotheb is normally really bad, he has the 5/1 to at least trade for it.
It's set up really well with the 5/1 on his board. Hunters don't have great ways of killing off kind of stray targets, but now with the Animal Companion off the top, unless there's an Earthen Ring Farseer drawn for Unskiller, there's no Lotheb left, so that could just be the game. And that's actually going to be it. So, however,
really...
yeah, Unskiller was actually pretty close to getting that 29 damage. He was basically a turn off at the end, and yeah, he even gets to tilt him with the Huffer, which in game 1 is pretty important. He even goes with the top decked card. So
yeah, maximum tilt there. Goes with the top deck and the Huffer. Gives them my apologies.
Yep, little tasteful BM there from the Hunter side. So Pavel gets that important win off the bat. And the Handlock matches up really well against all of Unskiller's decks. Patron Warrior, very powerful deck. Sometimes has trouble winning, but it got the job done in match 1. So, like you said, you favor Pavel, and I mean, now that he's up 1-0 with that Hunter out of the way, I can't help but favor him here.
Yeah, it looks like he'll leave the Anchor to the Warlock, which is fine, I guess. Honestly, both of his decks seem pretty solid now.
Yeah, Pavel kind of goes with the hardest to easiest strategy, which is, just wants to get those tough wins out of the way, feel better going into the later games, and just get that easy win, hopefully, at the end with the Handlock. Double Innervate start, though, with the Dr. Oh my gosh, it keeps happening.
That's twice now. Twice this in 4 series that we've seen. And there wasn't even that many Druids, but I've seen double Innervate Dr. Boom.
Jeez. Is there any world where you don't double Innervate Dr. Boom here? Oh no, he's hovering it. He wants it.
I mean, Ancient Allure is actually not that bad of a choice here because you do get the cards back you spent on the Innervates, but yeah, against a Warrior, you probably just want maximum pressure.
I think we saw a Big Game Hunter in Pavel's deck. He does not have it in his top 6 cards, though, so...
He has nothing to play here.
It's going to be a long road to stabilization for the Warrior here. But kind of like I said, double innervating the Boom, especially if you don't have Wild Growth behind it. Oh, wow, and Yeah,
I don't know
he's
if I
gonna
like that
need
play.
he's gonna need to hit the bomb. He needs to hit this bomb.
Oh man,
Oh wow.
that was so risky just to get damage. Plus the bombs are an
Yeah.
extra target that the warrior might have trouble attacking.
Well, if I was going to go for that play, I might have hero powered it first. Take the guaranteed 2 damage and set it up to die to lower damage bombs. But he just went for kind of the high risk, high reward, and he got maximum damage.
Yeah, that was so risky. I
He's even
mean,
gonna silence the
oh
taunt just to get another 7 in.
so he knows his strategy. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
not
oh, he's sticking to his guns here, yeah.
he
And
could have played Shredder.
yeah, I mean, he needs to draw execute here, I think, or that big game hunter, and that's not it. He could interrage his own loot hoarder. Oh God. So,
Well.
Dr. Boom's gotten in 21 now once it attacks this turn. The Boombot got in 4. So that's 25 from Dr. Boom alone, which was his turn 2 play. That's pretty good
draw.
card.
So he's not dead. He can clear the board here, and Unskiller doesn't have any damage in his hand.
Yeah. But Druid does indeed play some damage cards for later in the game. So, like I said, it's going to be a long road to stabilization if it's going to happen. Armor Smith would obviously be a card that would really help going into the late game stages to just gain a lot of armor. But he has to use the Inner Rage, which is unfortunate.
He could have done Warsong Commander plus Loot Hoarder there. He wouldn't have gained the health, but you don't die to anything with 6. Well, you die to Force Nature, I guess. But he could have done Warsong plus Loot Hoarder. He would set up the Warsong, and then he trades Loot Hoarder plus Corsair.
So, Emperor Thorison. It just keeps getting worse. There was that one turn where the Druid hero powered, and it was like, maybe there's a chance, but not happening really here for Pavel.
So if he had played the Warsong last turn, he would have been able to do Patron, Inner Rage plus Taskmaster, which would be a really greedy play, but you know, at this point you might consider doing it anyways. It would have gotten wrathed by Unskiller, but I think I would have leaned towards it in that position just to hope for, like, okay, maybe he won't kill it and I'll actually manage to get the Patron on board.
Yeah. If Unskiller were to win this game, though, I think Druid's one of the less important wins for him because it does have a good matchup against Handlock. His other 2 decks, not so much.
Yeah.
So you can't be feeling too down if you're Pavel. It's still tied 1-1. You still got that Hunter win, which is going to mean a lot, I think. So I would still favor him even at a 1-1 tie scenario.
Pavel's not giving up, though. He's fighting.
Unskiller did have to put the swipe into a Grommash, which, you know, is still bad for Pavel, but probably better than swiping his face for lethal, so a little surprised he didn't fire your War Axe. I think it was pretty well established his opponent didn't have any damage cards, so I think that could have been a turn where you can just take a risk and go down to about 4 health. Hope your opponent doesn't top deck you. And Saboteur is still not enough.
What would you have skipped playing that turn if you were going to play the War Axe?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess his turn did work out pretty well. You could have skipped playing the Whirlwind and developed all the rest still, since he did float a mana.
Yeah. And then the Taskmaster would have traded into the 2-2.
Yeah. Yeah, he needs to use that execute this turn. He's probably going to axe off the 2-1, and if he falls to 9 health or lower, which I don't think he will. I think he's still going to be out of lethal range, barring a Force of Nature top deck here. Oh, wait. Oh, the face attack, though. Does that do it? That should, right?
Yeah, I think so. He had another play with Death Spite attack face and use the War Axe to get the Whirlwind, but then his patron would be dead.
Yeah. So, goes, Pavel went for kind of a winning line, I suppose, where he had to take a risk at some point. That was the risk. It was not the turn to take the risk, unfortunately. But just an unlucky game overall. You're never happy to see Innervate boom. For 25 damage. Just ridiculous stuff, that game.
I mean, I don't think he'll feel too beat up about that loss. Yeah, obviously the Druid had a really good hand, and then risks were taken by the Druid to actually push that much damage, and still Pavel almost recovered, but it just was not in the cards for him that game.
And for another time today, we will see that good old patron mirror match.
Have we seen this in every series?
I think we missed it in one series.
Maybe the first one.
It was the first series where the zoo kind of dropped the ball, yeah. But it's been a very common matchup in this metagame where patron being brought by nearly every player.
I mean, I will say that although, it might sound like we gripe about it sometimes, just that it's so common, but the Patron Warrior is at least like a deck where there are a lot of spectacular plays that get made. Like the players have to use quite a bit of game analysis and gambling correctly based on what their opponent's going to have to make the best choices. So.
Yeah, it's also a matchup that has to do a lot with playing to what's left in your deck and how you can draw it, rather than just looking at your hand and thinking, okay, I've got this card. You have to think, okay, what could I draw in these next few draws? And we've seen that from players like Artiu, where he strung together 5 draws in a row to get Deathbite to set up a win. Unfortunately, got taken away from him by a top deck, but a lot of really interesting plays happen with this deck. And the mirror match, on the surface, kind of seems like a lot of mirror matches where it's like, oh, he drew the nuts and I didn't. But I do think there are a lot of kind of micro decisions that players make to put themselves in a good spot. And oh man, this turn, I wouldn't be surprised to see at least a Battle Rage. Well, yeah. I think we'll definitely see a Battle Rage. The question is, do you want to Battle Rage twice rather than playing the Frothing Berserker?
The Frothing just gets chopped, though.
Yeah. It's unfortunate he actually can't Battle Rage for 3. Because of how the sequencing will work. He needs to attack into it first to be damaged himself, which means he can't damage both Armor Smiths. So, just a little inefficient there. Misses out on 1 card. Nothing he could do about that, of course. So,
boy, you'd be so scared of a patron this turn. Your Frothing would get axed, and then there's 2 one-attack creatures on the board for you.
Well, yeah, he could clear out 2 of the patrons. 1 with his axe, and that's assuming there's an inner rage. He cleared the 1 health one with the Armor Smith, and cleared the other one with his axe, but Unskiller is actually going to avoid taking the face damage as he goes for Slam and Cruel Taskmaster. And I think that was incorrect sequencing. He gave his opponent 1 more armor than needed by slamming before attacking, but probably won't matter much. Hopefully in his case it won't matter much.
I think it was the same, right? Because he would still have to slam it.
You slam it after an Armor Smith is dead, though, yeah. So he decides to axe off the 2/2 to save his 1/1, which in this matchup isn't always that great, saving your chumps, basically. They kind of turn into liabilities once we hit around the turn 8 mark. And actually, Unskiller can't kill Emperor.
Yeah, to me this was a pretty questionable Emperor. You had Battle Rage, so you could have Battle Raged out some more cards first, and then Your Emperor
It
is
didn't
not.
hit any good combo pieces.
Yeah, but then since it's not removed, suddenly it's amazing for him. So it was
Yeah,
definitely the correct play.
he's actually going to run into Big Game Hunter here. He
Oh yeah,
probably should
wow.
Battle Rage here first, in case he draws a weapon. Unless he turns on Whirlwinding. Okay, so he's gonna draw. He's gonna go for maximum draw. This does kill off his Armor Smith, though.
That's pretty crazy to me. To Whirlwind when he had Grom in his hand, because oh, that worked out really well with what he drew.
Yes, so he's gonna have to make a very aggressive push this game. He does have both War Songs in his deck. He's already used to Frothing, though. So he's got about 20 damage in his hand. But in reality, in a Warrior Mirror match, 20 isn't that much if it's a finite 20. Lots of armor up. There's an Armor Smith in Unskiller's hand. A second Despite, though, puts him at 28 damage over the course of a lot of turns.
So if he just Groms here, that might be...
He could actually just win off of just Gromming here because there's no Execute, but I think he's going to respect the Execute and just go for the... Huh. He's thinking about playing Acolyte, but yeah, I think he should hold it for the Whirlwind effect next turn.
So that makes sense to go with the weapon first, because you had two weapons, and then, yeah, you're right, respect to Execute there, he drew
And this is game unless Unskiller gains 2 armor or more from the Armor Smith. So he needs to play Armor Smith and Armor Up, and he didn't. And so that should do it. He'll be at 15, but 16 is going to come out next turn for Pavel.
Yeah, I mean, you have to take a risk at this point as Unskiller, right? You know that there are
you need to get those patrons out. Your opponent's at 36. You have to go quick.
Yeah, he would have got punished by the Execute, but I wouldn't have minded seeing Grom there, just knowing he's that close. He made a better play, though. Gets the reward for it, takes the game. So that'll put Pavel up 2-1 with only the Hand Warlock deck left, which does seem like pretty much the best deck that he has against Unskiller's lineup. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Unskiller.
Yep, this is exactly where Pavel wants to be in the matchup. Like we talked about, he really put himself in a position where he's going into Game 4 with his easiest win potentially ahead of him. He's got the good matchup, Handlock versus Patron Warrior, and also he has Handlock versus Rogue, which isn't too shabby. So it's going to be tough for Unskiller. It's doable, but he's definitely not favored going into these next 2 games.
Seems like the only warrior that played with the new warrior skin took all the games, so clearly the new warrior skin is the overpowered feature of his lineup.
Yeah, pay to win. Yeah, Kappa. Right. He's going to go with the Rogue first. This is probably the better matchup for Unskiller. I'm not sure, did he keep that hand?
No. Surely he wouldn't keep.
He...
Wow. Maybe he wasn't watching before, so he doesn't know what type of warlock.
Wow. Because that's not really what I would want to keep. But it looks like he kept a Prep, Deadly Poison, and a Backstab.
I like the Prep, but yeah, Backstab in a Hand Warlock match is pretty ineffective.
Yeah. Gonna struggle, I think, to find a real great way to use it. I mean, you can use it, but... it's not going to be as insane as like backstabbing a Flame Imp or a Knife Juggler.
So I like this play a lot from Pavel here. When he plays the Ancient Watcher, because he has the coin, he's able to still play a Mountain Giant on turn 4 if he chose to tap into a Mountain Giant instead. But he has the option to silence that next turn just in case something was played that he wanted to deal with. So it kind of leaves all the doors open to him. And we see Unskiller kills it, but that doesn't even affect the rotation, really.
Yeah, I mean, killing the Ancient Watcher really didn't do much.
Shocky, busy man. Mountain Giant shows
got
up.
all the calls.
Mountain Giant showing up off the top. The best draw here, pretty much. A Twilight Drake would be comparable, but the Mountain Giant is a little better because if it gets sapped, it costs less mana, and it also poses the biggest threat. So the faster you can put the Rogue on the defensive, the more profitable you're going to be.
Yeah, the Mountain Giant off the top was obviously a very important draw. Just going to have to get Prep of Vist with the spell power. So he's going to get to kill it off, and he holds on to the sap, but he's not really running out of stuff because he has that sprint. But it's not looking great for the Rogue, to be honest.
Yeah, as far as killing a giant goes, that was probably about the best way you could expect to kill a giant. The prep having to be used was a little unfortunate, but since he had the other one, it's not a huge deal. Wow, is he really going to sap that?
Yeah, he did draw another sap, but yeah, sapping this doesn't really... It lets you put your opponent to 24, which is, not too scary for him. I think a big deal here is the Warlock has seen both preps out of you, so how are you ever going to, threaten lethal?
Yeah.
There's no threat of, prep oil shenanigans. You don't even have a dagger up. Yeah, you sapped his Belcher, but he can just... Right now, the Warlock's the aggressor. Seeing him coin out Dr. Boom, he's just going to try and kill you.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't such a bad sap because he didn't just replay it immediately. He'll have to play it later again for tempo, but...
Yeah, these boombots are pretty important, what they hit for. So above average, and with a Hellfire, and even Jiraxis maybe for 3 damage for the finishing blow. Oh, and Lotheb's actually really nuts here.
Yeah, because you want to push face damage.
Yeah, it's really hard to answer. But he goes with the Sledge Belcher instead. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I think I would have liked to see the Lotheb. The only real great answer from the Rogue point of view is the second SI agent. And now this kind of lets the Rogue take over the tempo a little bit.
I actually really like how this played out for Unskiller, because now there's no taunt on the board. And if he replays the Sledge Belcher, he's going to be able to just kill it with Lotheb.
Yep.
He's not going to be able to play Molten Giants. And you are threatening a decent chunk of damage. 8 damage on board, you would need to do 11. It's Deadly Poison, Oil, Eviscerate could maybe pull it off.
Yeah, and now it's kind of just at an interesting point where now the Lotheb comes down, but it's at a much worse point because your opponent has board. And so now, if your opponent wants, he can just trade, and your Lotheb really didn't do much. So again, really would have liked to see the Lotheb come out last turn.
Yeah.
And he ended up burning a Dark Bomb. Of course, burning cards is always kind of just a luck of the draw thing. So you can't look at the fact he burned a Dark Bomb and say, wow, what a bad play. But, I mean, it is information for Unskiller. Now he knows he can be a little more loose with his life total. Looks like it's going to be a board clear coming out.
So this is a pretty good Hellfire. But the problem is he doesn't have any creatures on the board at this point, and he doesn't have any Moltens either. I guess he's just banking on the fact that the Rogue is not going to attack into him because the Rogue will be worried about Moltens. But I don't know, how's he going to get creatures down? Because the Rogue is always playing first now. The Rogue is going to be setting up creatures each turn, maybe Harrison, Van Clef this turn, and then you're still ever threatened. Healbot Van Clef, pretty good play too. 7 damage on board with 6 possible from hand. So wouldn't quite have enough.
Yeah, the Warlock has had 2 clears in a row, and he just keeps producing threats. He is respecting the damage output from the Rogue here. He could have played a Giant, but then you are dead to some combinations of cards. And also we see a big game Hunter Tech from Unskiller off the top here. So really heads up to not play the Giant, even for playing a 1-mana Molten Giant last turn. Just knowing his opponent's out of sap, Sludge Belcher becomes the best defensive card in the game, really.
Yeah, I think this might lock down the game.
Yeah, the double giant into taunt. He could even taunt the taunts even more. So, an oil could let him clear, sort of, but he would go to 3, and the Jiraxis would end it.
I
So
think,
this looks like it's going to be it.
yeah, I think second Eviscerate might have been pretty good too, but
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't have a way to clear this without taking the damage, and he's actually just dead to board. So Unskiller is going to go down, and Pavel is going to take it 3-1 over RDU, and then over Unskiller, and he is your champion for this qualifier.
yeah, really well played by Pavel. I mean, I liked his lineup. I felt that it was the Hunter and Warlock are like kind of the wrong counterparts, but that seemed like it worked amazing for him. So obviously he made some pretty good picks there as well. Just in like the order he chose his decks to nail his opponents on each turn.
Yeah, just went with the 3 best classes in his opinion, and it really worked out. Just playing well, playing strong decks, and that's what it took. So if you guys want to compete in these tournaments, you can always sign up for the next open qualifier over at liquidheart.com. And also, you can head over to geico.onog.gg to enter for your chance to win an official TSM PC from iBuyPower. But for today, Pavel is your champion. This is Chalky and Hotform signing off.
Thanks for hanging out with me, Chalky. It was fun.
No problem, man.
We'll see you next time.